Hello, everyone. I'm Monica Gilson, Marketing Events Manager for M3 Global Research. I'm joined today by M3's Yana Rutin, our Director of UK Operations, and Lena Yatsenko, our Quality Manager and Director of Operations and IT System Management. Welcome to the second webinar of 3 we are hosting in our 2019 series. We're glad you joined us and for your interest in ISO certification. We will be taking questions at the end. You can submit them anytime during the webinar by using the Q&A function. If you have any technical difficulties, please use the chat function. Both of these options are available in the webinar console. Now, let me formally introduce you to our speakers. Yana Rutin has been with M3 her entire career. She has worked as a project manager, moderator, operations management for our qual team, and led compliance. Yana is now focusing full-time on compliance and processes across M3's global divisions. Lena Yatsenko has been with M3 for 13 years and has taken on a variety of roles from recruitment and fielding services to project management and IT projects. Her primary focus is on industry compliance projects where she provides full oversight of the US and EU offices in regard to industry regulations. Now I'll hand it over to Yana and Lena to dive in.
Great. Thank you very much, Monica, for the introduction. And to all of our listeners today, welcome to our webinar from Lena and myself as well. Just gonna try and go to the next screen. All right, so to go through the agenda points we have for today, we will first be talking about compliance and quality assurance in more general terms, and give a bit of background as to why we're even talking about ISO today, and M3's rationale for initially obtaining an ISO certification. We're then going to explain what ISO 26362 actually entails, and then we'll be digging deeper into how having the certification actually affects how we operate at different stages and, well, in different scenarios throughout fieldwork. We're then going to be taking a quick look at the recent, or really the current changes that are happening with regards to this specific ISO code and its connection to ISO 20252. We're then going to be concluding the session, and there will be some time for a few questions at the end as well, as Monica already indicated. And I can already advise that should there be questions that we don't have time for, we will review those afterwards, and we'll get back to you with responses via email. So please do feel free to submit any and all questions that you may have for us today. All right, so if we get started now, first we'd like to talk a bit about quality and compliance in general. So I think we can all agree that quality is, of course, the highest priority. Ultimately, we want to make sure that we obtain research results that are reliable and that are accurate so that we can confidently base business decisions on them. So I think without a doubt, quality that is the top priority. Now, if we look at compliance, to put it simply, compliance is following the rules, and there are quite a lot of rules to follow. So you have on the one side laws, such as the data protection laws. You have guidelines that you're committed to following, like the ephemera code of conduct or the BHVA code of conduct. And then you also have your own rules and policies that you may set as a company, which you then need to follow. And what we need to consider is that quite a lot of the rules and guidelines are ultimately designed either with a particular focus on ensuring quality, or it ends up that ensuring quality is quite a welcome byproduct of it. So I think compliance and quality end up going really hand in hand. So if you ensure that you are compliant, you most certainly are working towards quality. But then if you look at the flip side of that, obtaining quality without compliance, I would say that can be quite challenging. So M3 have put a great emphasis on compliance and quality. And something that we always need to keep in mind is that this is not just on a US level or just on a European level, but we find it advantageous to think of it as a global effort. So it's really at the heart of everything that we do, as opposed to being an afterthought. So on the screen now, you see just a few of the measures that we have taken, which encompass abidance by a number of laws, membership in a number of professional bodies, and of course our ISO certifications. So M3 are certified to ISO 26362 and 27001, but today we're going to be only focusing on 26362, which, well, certainly should be enough for one webinar. All right, so if we now think specifically about ISO 26362, we just looked at there being a bunch of codes of conduct and a bunch of local laws that we comply with. So what were we actually thinking to add another layer on top of this? So one of the reasons is it really comes down to the fact that there are laws, guidelines, and the aforementioned policies and own processes. And this is where we want to be really tight on and make sure that we have a framework that is really the best for quality that we can develop. And ISO 26362 really lends itself to that purpose. So we made the decision, I think it's about close to a decade ago now, with the anticipation that compliance would become increasingly important. And I think if we consider all of the recent developments over the last years, let's think about GDPR coming in, for example, we are very happy that we made this decision all those years ago, because having this framework in place has really helped us to adapt to any new challenges that have come in. So there are also many other benefits around having the ISO certification, but I'd like to highlight just two of those that both kind of have to do with confidence. So with our quality manuals in place, which Lena and me are going to be talking a bit more later on, we have a very solid focus that allows us to confidently and, what's maybe even more important, transparently answer any queries about our processes that come in. And in turn, also having that in place helps us to empower M3 employees who know that we can deliver certified quality to our clients. Then what's also good is that this is carried over into working with partners, because we have very clear stipulations and expectations on our working relationships with partners, which I'm always a big fan of, to have something in place. And I'd also say that expectation management is ultimately so important. And with ISO 26362, I find that you can very well manage expectations without actually losing flexibility when it is required. Okay, now Lena is going to talk a bit more about how we actually went about achieving our initial ISO certification.
Thank you, Jana. Can I have next slide? Yes, thank you. Now I would like to tell you about the process of implementation of ISO standard into your practice. The first thing M3 has done is purchase ISO 26362 standard. The standard is available on the International Organization for Standardization website or American National Standards Institute website. We have chosen Certification Institute for Research Quality, CERQ, to be our certification auditor company. We have contacted them and have gotten several very valuable tools to help us get started on our preparation for the audit. Second step M3 took is to appoint a quality manager for the company to lead the preparation and audit process. Quality managers' responsibilities were to work with teams to document their current processes, compare those to the requirements of the standard, and identify gaps between the two. Then continue reviewing these gaps and either improve existing processes or develop new processes to close those gaps. Along with process review, quality manager is responsible for developing quality manual for the company. Once processes and quality manual were finalized, all company employees were trained on them. The whole preparation period took about 3 months to complete. Then we have given these new quality processes another 3 months period to run and conducted internal audit to make sure everything ran according to standard requirements. After that, we have completed self-assessment questionnaire and submitted it to CERC. This assessment helped us determine how well we were prepared for the audit, and also we requested the schedule and audit date. Depending on how many locations you would like to certify and the number of employees in your organization, the audit might take 1 to several days per location. For M3, it was 2 days. During the audit, the auditor goes through all the processes, talks with team leaders and team members, and requests to show evidence on how processes are documented and followed. Next slide. Thank you. After the audit is complete, CERC sends a certification report with the results of the audit. The report lists all notes from the auditor, highlighting up to standard processes and also processes that could be potentially improved. Also, if there are items of concern on non-conformance items that were found during the audit, the report will list those as well as timeline of when those need to be addressed. CERC continues to audit annually to suggest improvements based on what they see during every audit. Overall, the process took time, patience, and acceptance from all team members, from management to employees alike. However, the benefits that we saw were incredible, and we continue to benefit from being fully compliant with improvements to our operations. And now Jana will talk a little bit more of the different stages of framework, our field work, and how ISO certification impacts those.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Lena. So as Lena said, I'm going to highlight different stages of field work and how we make sure that we deliver quality to our clients. So where do we start? We start at the very beginning. So what do we need in order to even think about doing field work? Of course, it's a panel. That's really where everything starts. And ISO 26362 has quite a significant impact on how we manage our panel. So firstly, when it comes to the recruitment of panelists or members, as we call them as well, they have to be recruited from a documented source. They must provide appropriate information to confirm their identity and their status as a physician. And, well, quite importantly, they, of course, need to opt into research as well. So what we have is we have a very clear, and it's actually a proprietary system where all such data points are tracked. And we also have appropriate safeguards in place that do prevent us from inviting any individuals to research that do not actually fit the verification criteria that we have set. So what I really like about this and see as a benefit is that it allows us to be able to confidently answer questions that may arise from our clients during field work, because all of the procedures that we follow they're very documented, and we actually also have an obligation to answer our clients' questions transparently. And there's actually another important aspect, and that's that members need to be active and must have a two-way interaction with us in the past 365 days in order to be considered active panelists. And I think that's really great for two reasons. So on the one hand, quality-wise, it's quite brilliant because what you do is you avoid seeing the same respondents taking part in service over and over again, and then having a set of physicians who count as a panel but are actually dormant and don't take part. So by making sure that your panel is active, you ultimately end up with better responses and more varied responses. The other point is that this requirement helps us justify investment in this area. And M3, for example, have quite a large panel team that makes sure members are active and members are engaged. So they do that, for example, through a blog, through updating members, through continuously profiling them. Or what I find quite interesting is as well that we run some internal mini surveys and we share the results of that with members. And generally we get very good feedback from members on that as well. Okay, the next item that I want to talk about is project management. So M3 have project management teams that are based in several countries. And what is very important for us is that when a client comes to M3, that they have the same service experience in project management, whether they work with someone in our Pennsylvania office or in our London office, for example. And this is again where ISO comes into play. So we have established standard operating procedures that importantly are the same across all of our offices. And those SOPs cover the whole project lifecycle, so they're clear processes to follow from pre-field to in-field all the way to post-field as well. And I think by now you probably see a clear pattern of what we are communicating is that ISO is all about clearly documenting what you should be doing and, well, then of course following through on those processes as well. What's also important in this section is that these standard operating procedures are not set in stone and they can and need to evolve as well. So definitely not all of the processes now are the same as they were 8 years ago when we first got certified. So they need to go with the time, they need to go with technology, they need to go with new requirements on data protection, for example. So we have the flexibility of actually improving processes, which we try to continuously do. Next, we're talking about data collection and quality control specifically. So this is a clear stipulation that all deliverables are quality checked before they can be shared with clients. But we're not only saying, yes, they have to be quality checked and that's it, but instead we specifically talk about how those deliverables are quality checked as well. So this is another example of where it is very beneficial to have the certification when a new staff member joins M3, because they have quite clear guidance that they can then follow. Having this clear stipulation also helps us make sure that we build an appropriate timelines from the beginning that really allow us to check deliverables to the quality that we do want them to be. So this is another important area that ISO influenced, which is working with partners, which I touched upon earlier. So we at M3, of course, retain overall responsibility for any services that are carried out by subcontractors. And so in addition to the standard contractual relations, we have quite a defined process for initially selecting partners. We with that also have a tracking system so that the partner's performance on each individual study is tracked, and there is a procurement team in place that evaluates that as an amalgamated score and performs regular partner audits as well. So here ISO really serves as a reminder that before I can work with any partner, I must, absolutely must, make sure that they are fully vetted, and a partner will only be used by M3 once we have the full confidence in their procedures and their commitment to, and well, importantly also capability for the quality levels that we have set. So another item where our ISO certification has greatly aided us is in making sure everything is up to date in the area of IT and data security. So on the one hand, of course, we have fixed standards when it comes to that, but then we also have to make sure that we find the time to regularly train all staff on it. So you need to make sure that everyone is trained. You need to make sure that everyone actually understands the training, and you need to make sure that you have your training documented. What we find quite important with that is that you need to make sure that training doesn't end up just being a tick box exercise. So you have to try and really make it engaging and make sure that people really understand it and listen to you. So what we, for example, do is we do tests on different areas, and we try to spruce it up with some real life examples that employees could come across and that they can then relate to. And we found that this makes the training much more lively, and it helps us to ensure that it is actually understood. We also need to make sure to have regular refreshers. That's very important. And one area I wanted to particularly highlight is that you need to carefully look at training during the initial onboarding of a new staff member. So because of course there are some trainings and information that an employee must receive on their very first day in the company, but you have to be careful to not overload them. So you have to make sure that you have a clear training plan in place and not just check boxes, because otherwise the training and what you're trying to communicate will not be fully grasped. So again, in here it's our ISO certification that helps us make sure that training isn't an afterthought. And again, you surely see the pattern here, and I'm just repeating myself. So much of it is really down to documentation, make sure that you have your rules written down and you have processes in place, and you make sure that they are actually being followed. So lastly, and I think this is one of my favorite items showing where our certification has helped us a lot, is GDPR. So just like I said a minute ago, it's all about documentation. And if I think back to 2017, yeah, probably, when we started looking at GDPR and really preparing for it, we at that point were able to realize that through the ISO 26362 certification, we actually did have a lot in place already. So we knew what data we held, we knew what we were doing with it, we knew how we were storing it, we knew how for long we were storing it for, and this has really been quite wonderful to leverage. And I think that that was one of the key moments for myself where I learned to appreciate all of the work that we had put into the ISO 26362 certification. Okay, and now Lena is going to talk a bit about the forthcoming changes to ISO 26362.
Yes, thank you, Anna. As I previously mentioned, M3 is certified, as we both mentioned, under ISO 26362, which was access panels in market opinion and social research. However, there was another standard that was available to market research companies, 20252, market opinion and social research. There was a lot of overlap between the two standards. The incredible news that we received from CERC last month that after long 3 years of reviews, the new standard 20252 was published, and it will replace the two previous versions. This new standard eliminates the overlap and also includes improved relevance to current market research stakeholder needs, and contains new requirements such as data practices, ethical requirements, and data management security that align with EU General Data Protection Regulation. Next slide. What does it mean for M3? We are planning to recertify under this new standard in January 2020. We are well prepared to do it. M3 will be audited against the Clause 4 core requirements for market opinion and social research, as well as sampling, fieldwork, and data management annexes. And the next slide. And so out of all the benefits that Jana and I listed at the beginning of the presentation, we decided to pick our absolute favorites to conclude our presentation. So my absolute favorite is standardized processes and quality management system. Since we have been first certified in 2011, we have increased the number of employees by about 20 times and expanded the number of offices which are dedicated to market research at least 4 times. Along that expansion path, we always trained employees and opened offices based on our company-wide quality management system. That way, we have uniform consistency in operations and documentations. And no matter where our projects are managed from, our clients receive the same level of services, documentation, and support on both sides of the ocean. And Jana, what is yours?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's definitely the audits. So we have audits internally, 3 times a year we run internal audits, and there's also an external audit that takes place annually. And I think those are really quite brilliant because you check that things are being followed and you check that your processes are actually working, because well, if processes are not being followed, they can't be very good processes. And so it's a great opportunity for improvement because you really obtain feedback on things. You learn what is working really well, and you learn what potentially is not working as well, and it allows you the flexibility to adapt. So that for me is definitely the key point.
Good.
Great. Thank you both, Jana and Lena. Now, while they go through the questions submitted, I want to review 2 items with you all. At the end of the webinar, you'll be taken to a survey. We would greatly appreciate your feedback. We especially value suggestions for future webinars to ensure we're covering topics that are important and interest to you. We will also be hosting our final webinar in this series on the 16th of April, which will be a spotlight on QQFS, which M3 acquired in 2017. Jana and Lena, did we have any questions come through?
We did have one question here that I thought was quite interesting. It was, did you have to change a lot of the processes? Lena, do you want to take that?
Yes, I would say that overall, all companies are different. And the standard itself is not something that would give you exact steps to work on, or exact instructions to work on. The standard will give you the idea and the way you need to strive for quality, to achieve quality. So sometimes for some companies, when they look at the standard, they need to change a lot, and some companies they don't. They just need to adjust their processes. So I would say that it's definite that the change will be required, but you'll need to document what you do and then adopt where it's needed.
Great, thank you very much. I don't think we have any open questions right now, but please feel free. There's one that came in: if M3 holds the qualifications on a global basis. And yes, that is correct. So it covers our US and UK offices. Okay.
Wonderful.
I think that's it.
Yes, thank you, Jana and Lena, so much for your time today. So if anyone has any other questions, please reach out to us at marketing@usa.m3.com, or you have Jana's contact information here, but we will get back to you. Then also in a few days, we'll be sharing the full audio and video version of this webinar, including a copy of the presentation. You can also find this webinar and previous that you may have missed in the resources section of our website. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope to host you again on the 16th of April.
Thank you.